2 penguins enter, 1 penguin leaves. PenguinDome. Streaming and uploading videos to you from somewhere in the high mountain desert southwest. This is the antenna that's for my internet. It's pointed at a repeater about 1.5 miles away, and this little greenhouse part here is temporary. And let's get this started. I started with a plan, and as far as architectural drawings or architectural drawings go, this plan is upside down because I have south at the top. This represents, as far as the size of the tire, represents a 235 75 15, which ends up being about 29 inches wide. And they're used as bricks to build my home, and I end up with 29-inch thick rammed earth walls. And so here's the dome, and this would be kitchens and systems. About the back 5, or which I didn't draw, 5 or 6 feet of this room would be the electrical system over on this side, and the water system over on this side. And as far as the kitchen, I drew in a stove and the sink to make sure I didn't have a pinch point here. And actually, I did color in this drawing. And so, although the cisterns are in the wrong place. So there's that. And so the idea here, like I said, this drawing is upside down. South is at the top. And the idea of here is that this would be 3 tires high. And on top of this 3 tires high would be the standard sloped glass front face of the old school style earth ships. So, something like this. I'd go 3 tires high, and that's where and that would be the south facing glass. And this area here, it serves as gray water treatment, which is what's depicted here, and the hallway to the kitchen area, and it's also the heater. In the wintertime, it collects the solar gain and warms the place. So there's the plan. And in reality, I got the dome closed in, and I got most of these tires pounded. And one of the things you notice here is I've got the kitchen sink here and the bathroom here, and so there's one plumbing wall. So the plumbing has to go to, there's one plumbing wall that's shared by the kitchen and bathroom. And then as far as the gray water, that's all in basically the relatively same place too, to eject the gray water into the gray water treatment system. So that is the reason this is like it is. And this was going to be my living room, kitchen, and systems, and this was going to be a shop area. This is actually a garage door, and this would not be a flagstone floor, and then it's a size of a 2-car garage, but it's sideways. So it's actually it's meant that 1 car would come in, and the rest of it would be wood shop and metal shop and whatever kind of shop. And I wanted to put a maintenance trench here, so that you'd just stand underneath the car and work on it. It was the idea. So that was my vision. And as far as a gray water treatment planner goes, I think here's an example of a gray water treatment planner. So I would have the slant glass on 3 tires high for a foundation basically, and the gray water planter is what that top section of the drawing represents, facing south, because my drawing is upside down. Partially inspired by this building here and others. The earth ships are an actual thing, and there is code for these things, even though they are still considered experimental housing. And so here's the first course of tires on my dome. I got it all laid out. I was digging the dirt. I started the gray water planter, and in the beginning I was getting my dirt from the excavation from the gray water planter. And something I want to show about these tires. Okay, so there's that picture. And of course I want it to, they're laid like bricks, and I want it to lock it in to the kitchen area. So this tire is set slightly back, and so it still locks in. And this is the first course of the kitchen slash systems room, which is pretty much like the plan, not quite. So there's that. And so to continue on, okay, here we go. Here is to show that first, now this tire is pounded hard and full, but not only are the tires pounded hard and full, they're also pounded level with the tires next to each other. So, and this is done pounding. First, you pound into the sidewall, and you use an 8-pound sledgehammer. A 6-pound sledgehammer doesn't work as good, and a 10-pound sledgehammer in general doesn't pound tires better. It just works you harder. So an 8-pound sledge is the way to go. And you pound dirt into the sidewalls, and then tap the center as you go. And so you end up with rammed earth, very thick walls encased in rubber. As far as, and there's where I put an electrical chase, and there's one on the other side to go into a room. That's the chase for the electrical. And there you see the plumbing chase down here with the pipe coming in from the cistern. There's the beginning of my cistern, of course. When it's all said and done, the bottom will be rebarred, and it will be wired inside and out, and it'll probably start, the floor of it will be higher here and slope away, because you want all your sediment and stuff to go away from the pickup. And there is showing the initial running the pipe in through the chase from the cistern into the what will be the systems room. So here's progress going, showing here's the chase for the plumbing from the cistern. So this is earlier than the last picture I showed you. Here's another view of the tires, and in this case I'm at some point, there's not much more done on these tires, but my next goal is to get the systems room closed in, even if the rest of this stays open. And then when I get the system room closed in, I can get hot and cold running water and a permanent electrical system instead of a temporary electrical system going is the next goal. And so here's some and here's where I started on the actual roof, and we'll go into that. But before we go into the actual roof, I want to talk about this here. This is going to be what's called a cool tube. And even though I went ground up with my earthship, I did not dig a hole. The berm on the north side of this thing, it'll be buried on the north side. There will be a berm, and the berm will come about up to here-ish, because there will be a, and so the idea here is that this will be a tunnel underneath the berm. And when I open the skylight in the summertime, the hot air going out the skylight will pull air underground out of this tunnel, which will be cooled by the natural coolth of the earth. I don't know if coolth is a word, but oh well. And so it'd be convection powered air conditioning. So this will eventually be a cool tunnel for summertime use, and of course there'll be insulated doors for when it's not summertime. But so, and these bottles, what we do is you throw mud or cement. I went overkill with the cement. You throw one bottle brick in there, or one bottle in there, and then you throw 2 bottles in there, and at that point you've got a semi-flat surface that you can start plastering. But before I can start any of the plaster on this, I need to run the electrical. And so the electrical will get ran, it will be covered in lath, and it will be cemented in, and then I can start on the actual interior plaster. But at the moment, I have not ran the electrical yet. So let's get into the roof. Let's go over everything here. First of all, this 3-can high wall, there's a foot in between those 2 walls in there, and that is just a form for the bond beam. I went with the concrete bond beam. A lot of earthships do have wood rebar pinned wood bond beams. But I'm going with the concrete roof. And in the kitchen area, I'm wanting to do a barrel vault concrete roof on the kitchen area. And then when it gets to the shop area, the idea was to go conventional roof. But as far as this bond beam goes, there's this piece of rebar here. There is a 3-foot long piece of rebar pounded into the top of every tire, and that's sticking out here. And then I've got my 2 pieces of rebar going all the way, so everything's attached. This is a bond beam, and then that's poured with concrete, and this is the initial rebar for the dome roof and the initial rebar for the barrel vault. And you see I've got at least 18 inches of rebar or more sticking out to the side here to tie into what will eventually be the bond beam of the kitchen systems room. And there's what will eventually be the cistern back there in the back. So 3 cans high walls here that are the form for the bond beam, rebar, a 3-foot long piece of rebar pounded into each tire, all attached to, it's I did all this to code, even though I'm not really dealing with that. And then when that bond beam gets poured, boy, I was a lot younger back then, I tell you. We've got plaster lath tied to the bottom of the rebar, and on top of the rebar, we've got remesh. And what I did was a 5-gallon bucket at a time, and I hand mixed all the cement, and I basically poured this and plastered it. Actually, the 5-gallon buckets were about a third full, but and slowly poured and built this plaster lath, rebar, remesh roof. And let me go back to this other picture we were at a little bit ago. So back here, so what you can see is I got this bond beam poured, and then most of the not very little plaster fell through the plaster lath. And once I got up this high, I had to leave a room to tie on the next piece of rebar, but I also wanted to stabilize it. So this here, I'm getting ready to, this part here is ready to pour up to about so, and then I can tie on the next piece of rebar. And I poured this roof 5-gallon bucket at a time, just over. So if I had $20 to throw at this project, I went and got me a bag of cement and went for it. And there's another picture showing I've got bond beam poured. It's probably about the same time. And this back here was going to be the chicken ship. So that's the how I'm doing my dome roof. Now at a certain point, I got a 3-foot by 3-foot skylight that will eventually be an operable skylight in the middle of the dome. And so what I did is I had this thing suspended on stilts. It's braced, and it was just sitting up there, suspended on stilts, leveled, braced, and I started. And there's a lip here. There's both a lip here, because I've got this 2x6 or 2x4, whichever it is. I think maybe it's a 2x4 attached to the 2x12, so that there's a lip here, and these screws will eventually be encapsulated with cement and help hold it in place. But that started out on stilts, braced, so it wouldn't move this way, and braced again. It was braced several places. The Skylight box braced square, etc. And I also poured a footer, again with rebar. Now, since this is in the end all be all things, an interior footer, I didn't go all that deep with it, but poured so far, set the rebar in, and poured that the rest of the way up. Now, instead of putting J-bolts in here to attach the nailer, I went with a different route. And this is instead of J-bolts. We call this porcupining. And that's tar paper. I've got the wood covered in to protect it. And you got these bunch of screws in all different directions. And then that gets set down into the cement and tapped level. And that is what is holding my nailer to that footer instead of J-bolts. It was just seemed like the easier thing to do. And they're showing, and here's a couple pictures showing pouring the cement around the Skylight box. And so you notice there's a lip here, and I got my plaster lath, my rebar. I got extra rebar around the Skylight box, and then I even went more hardcore, and I've got hog wire here for extra reinforcement of the cement around this Skylight box, and poured it and scratched it and poured it and scratched it. And there's another view of pouring around the Skylight box. And so at this point, after that set up good somewhere, I probably poured some more of it, but at some point I can remove the back stilts. And so this was a view from the neighbor's house from about that time. And there's, because I'm only seeing, and so it looks like it's a full dome from here, but in reality, from the other side, it looks something more like this. And so at this point, I've got my camp back here behind these blankets and curtains and stuff. Little workbench set up here. At this point, this was meant to be French doors. This is a big piece of glass, 18 to 24 inches up from floor level. It depends on what I can get away with an outlet. I'll have an outlet here and an outlet here, so it's going to determine how high those outlets have to be as to how big this window is going to be. And then this is planned to be operable windows, and this is planned to be a set of French doors. But they're showing I've removed the back stilts of the Skylight box and got about half of the dome poured, and we still got the front stilts going, and I've started with the framing on the front face. And so let's take a little look at that. Here's another random picture before the Skylight. Another. Oh wow, there's another one where I just had got the Skylight box up on stilts and it's building up to it. Another picture of prep around the Skylight, which I may or may not have already shown. There's a pretty cool pic. But in any case, I've still got all 4 stilts at this point. So in any case, there's my frame I started with for the French doors and the 2 windows on each side of the French door. There's where I used a rubber mallet to pound. There's the porcupine nailer. And I used that rubber mallet to tap it where I need it to level it out, at least level, and provide a something to nail the front framing to. And at this point, there we are, nailed down. We're braced, and I've got my nailers and my boxes for my operable windows attached at this point. And so at this point, we need to, at this point in the game, it was time to attach this to the cement and bring this up and make this all up together. And I did this all out of pocket as I had money. I bought materials and went for it. So let's look at some of the details here. They're showing the nail there. This is setting in the nailers. I porcupine those two. The nailers for the operable windows on either side of the dome, south face. That is that's a 2x12 up there, and that's to attach the greenhouse sloped roof to. I built a rebar frame. I ended up pouring a bond beam. I braced it really good and poured the concrete bond beam across here, but there's better pictures of what's going on here rebar wise. There's some more. There's another picture beginning to marry that front face, and you can see all the bracing I got up here, getting ready to pour a concrete header. That would be, it's part of the bond beam, but it's also the header for this framing. And attaching the dome to it all. And I've got to show some more details on that. There it is coming together. So here, this rebar is coming out of the tire. So this is all, and there's a whole bunch of porcupining going on. And so you can see what's going on here. I have it braced because I got plaster lath here. Just got the rebar here, meeting the rebar from the bond beam, meeting rebar from the dome roof. And so, and as you need, I've screwed a board here and porcupined it, and I'm attaching plaster lath and pouring this and bracing this as I go to basically have a column that holds up this I forgot the terminology now. I just said it a minute ago though. And I've got another picture of the details on how I attached the wood to the cement. Let's go ahead and find it. Here's another pic showing the rebars going up. So it looks like I've got a 2x4 and a 2x4. So, and it's there's a slot in the middle. So I'm basically, this is all tough as nails. You can see I've tied it to the bond beam. It's braced. It's pretty much the same picture from the other side, just because it's in rotation. There's a picture of the Skylight all the way encapsulated and no more stilts. The Skylight box that needs to go up at least another 2x12 before it gets the operable Skylight built on top of it. That's a cool picture of the unfinished Death Star. I don't know if you've seen that yet or not. It may have been in I think I've had it in rotation. And I'm just throwing this in here. Even though I haven't got to do any finish work on my own house, I actually do also do finish work. And this is some of the work I did in the Phoenix Earthship. So the next task that was on hand that I wanted to accomplish and didn't quite make it is I wanted to get at least the first 4 inches of pumice-crete on top of this thing to use for insulation. And as you can see, this is just the concrete roof, and there's about 4 inches of pumice here. And you can see that where the pumice is on the roof, the snow didn't melt from the heat escaping through the cement. So that does work, and the idea was that I would have 12 inches of pumice-crete to use for, in the end-all be-all of things, to use for insulation on this roof. And there's some more showing the pumice going up on there. And I also got this chimney more squared away. And that's about where I ran out of oomph. But as I have the funds available, which I don't at the moment, but as I do, I'll continue working on it. So that's it. That's the PenguinDome. And there's the pile of pumice I started with, and that pile's gone. I gotta go get some more, but it's very, very light, and it does act as insulation, as I showed in that other picture. So this is where, and here's a random picture of, like I said, I hand mixed it all and poured it a third of a bucket at a time, carrying it up on that roof and pouring more cement and plastering it and scratching it. And so that's my little piece of the American dream. I do actually own my land and my home, and there's no bank involved. And I'm poor as fuck, but that's okay because I own my land, I own my home, and there's no bank involved. And I got really lucky. These are 25-year-old industrial cells. These are 2 volts each. And unlike what they sell to us consumers, the positive and negative plates in these batteries are more than a 1/4 inch thick. And even though these are 25-year-old lead acids, they've never been in an industrial situation. They were designed to last 20 years in an industrial situation, and they're just fine for my small needs. So thank you for watching. That is my home, and where I got stuck and I broke my vehicles and ran out of money, but I've got a room closed in, I've got internet, I'm warm, and it's mine.